Will Tesla FSD 12.4 be robotaxi level? What would that mean if it happens? Let's discuss. So recently, there's there's been major developments, and that major development with Tesla full self-driving is that Elon Musk and Tesla are giving 1 month free trials to everyone in the United States and Canada for Tesla FSD, the full self-driving system. Also, the version 12.3.1 and 12.3 are being rated as very human-like, which we've discussed in a previous video. So what we want to do is we want to discuss, there's actual data that we're getting from customers that's been accumulated. We'll discuss that data and what that means and the progress that we're seeing. And then we'll also discuss the impacts on Tesla, the company, the share price, and the world. And then we'll discuss the timing of these things. So let's first get into the case of what is robotaxi level? How am I defining it, and what that might mean? So we're getting data from hundreds of Tesla FSD 12.3 users who are contributing to a site, Tesla FSDtracker.com. And we're finding that 12.3 is at over 300 miles per disengagement. I expect this data to slightly improve because if you have a disengagement sooner, say at 100 miles, you'd report that in 2 or 3 or 4 days. Oh my God. But then if you have 400, 500 miles, that could take you a week, 2 weeks to get that result, right? So it would take time to accumulate the better no disengagement drives. But we are seeing that from Twitter reports, and I get some personal reports from people who have it, where they doing multiple stop drives for work, where they have, not just a regular commute, but going to different job locations and reporting no disengagements and great drives. But the other thing is that we know that 12.4 should be released in about 2 weeks, or 12.32. So improved versions are coming, which could further eliminate the disengagement reasons. I believe that about 5,000 miles, it becomes credible to have a discussion is the system at robotaxi level, which would then be perhaps only 10 times, 15 times better than what we're looking at now, which if the rate of progress is 3 times per month, they could reach that level in 3 months, 2 to 4 months becomes the possibility. And this is not, report to someone else. It's some data is backing this level, this assertion analysis. And the amount of miles for Waymo, the robotaxi company with about 500 cars, they say they have about 17,000 miles per critical, perhaps safety-related disengagement, a critical disengagement. So we're trying to match, a disengagement of I'm just impatient with some other kind of disengagement. Do you have any comments on that, Randy?
Yeah, I think it's important to take into consideration the nature of who is calling the disengagement a disengagement. So you have professional drivers. Tesla has people out there right now. They started hiring last summer. Last summer they started hiring these drivers to just spend all day, every day driving these FSD cars. After you've driven for a couple of days, you get used to the car's actions. I'm sure this is true for the Waymo. I'm sure it's true for all these different systems. And so if you're used to it, you're like, oh, well, that's a little close to the curb, but I know it's not going to hit the curb, then you don't disengage. But if you're a brand new driver, or if you haven't driven it for a week, or if you just recently had a disengagement, well, then all of a sudden you're a little more nervous. So individuals who are not driving, who are driving a normal 1,000 miles a month, probably are going to have way more what they call critical disengagements than the professional drivers. So this kind of a decision, whether it's ready for robotaxi, is probably going to be made more by Tesla than by the data that we're grabbing from these consumers.
Right. So, but the data from the consumer is what we have right now.
Yeah, it's
So
useful.
we have 100
Very
times
useful.
less data than Tesla does. And
Yes.
we also don't know um, if some of the people are lying or other things. There's all kinds of problem with the data, but it's kind of like the best we have that
Sure.
is, not assumptions. So these surveys, and there's more than one survey out there. Plus, there's also the actual video that people are sharing. So if this reports are correct, slow creep acceleration, light accelerator tap, um, things adjusted with speed, those don't seem that difficult to fix because the previous versions, 11, and I think, you know, it didn't have the speed issue. But we're talking like 5 miles per hour, 55 miles per hour instead of 60 miles per hour. It's not that big of a fine tuning that we need to have here. And then the creep thing is a setting of aggressiveness that needs to be adjusted. So if we get rid of most of that, then you're getting rid of like 2/3 or 3/4 of the disengagements right there. And then the other causes of disengagement talk about navigation map issues. The skill issue is clearly an important one. We'd have to dig down into what the skill issue claims are, whether that they doesn't have the skill to do it. Impatience seems to be something that can be fine-tuned. Another vehicle right away human. So again, we need more information, but the main ones are getting rid of all phantom braking and making sure your lane changes and other turns and intersections are correct would be a major aspect. Any comments on that?
Yeah, a lot of these that are on this on the right-hand side of this list, like impatience, for instance, a consumer who is in a robotaxi isn't going to be impatient. They don't even have that choice. They don't even have that option.
Right.
So, there's some of these that are going to be just not true, for the robotaxi.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, Waymo operates in about 3 cities and will soon get to LA. So they're in, I think, Phoenix, they're in San Francisco, and maybe one other place I can't recall, maybe something else in Arizona. And then they're going to go to LA, and they have like 500 vehicles. So they've been authorized to give rides without a safety driver. Some locations they had to have a safety driver, others they do not. If you have no safety driver, you as a passenger can hit a button to say an emergency call out and get someone on it. Say, hey, I have a problem and do this and that. So basically, it's emergency customer service you can get, and then they can then do something for you. Um, but they don't have a means to, like, you're in the back seat, you can't reach the controls, right? You can't hop over the barrier, just like a taxi. I'm behind the barrier, I cannot take over from the taxi driver, right? So that's that situation. So even if you say, okay, this is going too slow, like people who were stuck for hours, where the thing had just stopped, in an intersection, and they could, they had to just abandon the vehicle because it was stopped. They could just open the door and get out, but they could not take over controls, tap the accelerator, get it moving again. And that not being able to move the robotaxi is an issue for fire, police, and the passengers. But they have no driver there. So want to discuss what this means. So if 12.4 steps up and gets 3 to 10 times better, which is a possibility, that's a range that seems to be in play, that would mean over 1,000 miles to as much as 3,000 miles, maybe 4,000 miles of between disengagements. So we're also talking about getting feature complete, which is being able to reverse and mastering parking, and so there's other major categories of capabilities. Reverse being, I think, one of the most important ones. And then those two capabilities should be sufficient, I believe, to test out the confidence to remove it from beta. So they have the confidence now to give it to everyone, even people who have not purchased FSD, to give it a try. And I think why wouldn't they then be confident enough to remove beta once they've have like a month of that capability? Removing from beta is a huge financial impact because it means, accounting wise, they would be able to recognize all the money. If they get paid $12,000, they don't just recognize six and then set six aside. They recognize the full 12,000. So financially, the big thing, and that would have a certain stock impact. And going forward, it would have impact. Also, if they increase the people who choose to use it, that would again be just all incremental revenue and income.
Yeah,
On the, go ahead.
and I think the confidence level is the big thing. This is the thing that a few people are talking about, but what this is indicating is that Tesla, you know, they're not they're not information constrained like we are. They're
Mhm.
seeing exactly what's happening on a day-to-day basis. There are, you know, they already have
3.
12.3.2.
Yeah.
12.3.2 is already being released to their employees. And so they're seeing stuff that we're not seeing. Their confidence level is very high right now. If
Mhm.
they're saying every single person who buys a new vehicle, every single person that already has it in their car can now do this 1 month free trial, they're expecting a lot of folks to say, okay, that's great, I'm doing it.
Right. And I think they've been using 12.4 for their, like Elon
Oh,
and a core of 100 special testers have been using 12.4 and maybe 12.5 already for that. Because they were talking about two more major releases by end of April, beginning of May, right?
right.
So whether that exact timing plays out, it could be a bit later, but if we're only talking about another month or two, June, July, um, it would be the completion of substantial um, change. So besides less disengagement, more perfect drives. So people are getting perfect drives where they know disengagement and they feel great about it. It goes to your comfort point. And then this would also change the perception of the stock, more to it is an AI company. It's not just a car company, right? Where it has that revenue. Um, and if it has more of that revenue, if you get, over $1 billion per quarter, then that is, just like Amazon went from an e-commerce company to a cloud computing company. And then the cloud computing revenue became 80, 90% of the revenue. That crossover point was when the analysts started focusing just on the cloud revenue for Amazon,
Right.
right? But the other thing would be that if they get a licensing deal, if Tesla gets a licensing deal with a Ford, you know, they would certainly offer the first one to license will get a better deal.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of a race to that, and they are testing that. And there's rumors that they are testing, but they're testing. They're having some employees, 5, 10, however many employees with their Teslas, testing their FSD, and then reporting back to the CEO and saying, so how good is it? Is it reached the point where, okay, we believe them now, and now we got to license it, right? Because none of them have anything that can operate on city streets. It's all like autopilot and sometimes more limited in terms of how they do highway. So this is a completely new capability that they do not have,
Oh, on
and
so many
which,
on so many levels, because
mm,
it's not just that, but it can operate. The idea is that it can operate in any city street, anywhere, or any rural street, or any unmarked street, in the
yeah,
snow, in the rain,
mm,
uh, you know, through construction zones,
mm,
uh, in situations. The one I've talked about for so long that most of these other systems are not going to be able to do is being able to navigate through very busy crosswalks,
mm,
uh, where there's dozens or hundreds of people crossing in various different directions all the time. And we're already seeing video of FSD 12.3.1 doing that.
right. And there are video of it working in the rain, working in the dark, working in some level of reduced visibility for fog, etc. And then
Snow
also
also.
on snow. So there's more of that other condition operation that's happening. And then because it's gone all neural net, there is no more re-architecting. So before, when you're hand coding it, they would have these major changes where we have to totally reconfigure the architecture of the software, which would be basically going from scratch and recoding everything, building, tearing down the building and then rebuilding it. So there should not be regressions, where it's like one step forward, two steps back, which we saw in that previous chart I had, where you'd have 10 get up to a certain level over 100 miles, then drop down below, and then different versions of 11 getting up higher, and then going down to 80 miles, half as good, getting back up again, getting back down, getting back up again. So it had two major regressions in there, which, so the regression thing was a real thing that people were seeing.
Yep.
And so then this phase is something interesting to discuss. And then the question will become actual robotaxi permit. This is more long-term. This is beyond FSD 12.4 up to FSD 13 or whatever that. Actual robotaxi permits, gathering enough data to prove overall safety, probably 10 times better than human or more. And then I think bigger than robotaxi is robotruck, bigger financial impact, perhaps bigger societal impact. That is robotruck. And then this software also impacts Tesla bot, because they're using the same video training, the same AI systems, just different forms of video, different form factor to get to the whole real world AI. So we can discuss that, the robotaxi, robotruck case, or we can, what do you think? You want to discuss the catalyst more? What you're thinking there, Randy?
Yeah, I would just, the main thing, clearly the robotruck is a very, very big deal, where these trucking companies would be able to take their drivers out of the seat. We've talked about that at length in earlier videos. It's a huge, huge deal. There's a shortage of truck drivers all over the world, not even just in the United States. And that shortage is probably not going to go away, but this would solve that. Plus, it would, I think you were the one that did some analysis. We might have done a video a year ago or more where you did some analysis which suggested the price of groceries would drop by, was it 10% or more, just by eliminating truck drivers?
Right. So the robotrucking point, let me summarize that case for people. So if I can eliminate the driver, then the big deal for trucking is, in the United States, Europe, Asia, is that there are about 6 million, 7 million trucks in the United States, 5 million drivers. So there's more trucks than there are drivers. And there's about 20 million total in the world, right? 20, 30 million total semi-trucks, large trucks in the world. And the drivers are making about $100,000, $150,000 each for the driving. And totally earn it. It's a valuable thing that they do. But if the trucking company were able to eliminate the driver, if Tesla was to charge, say, $40,000 per year, ongoing per year, not the $12,000 once, not the $2,400 per year subscription for passenger cars, but $40,000 for eliminating something that costs 3 times more, and also enabling really to replace on the same trucking asset, each one of these vehicles, 3 shifts, because it can operate at night and do 3 shifts. I no longer have the person must sleep in order to not be a danger to the road, right? So they would increase the value by 3 times. So even tripling the value from a 40,000 to 120,000, making roughly the same, has justification. But let me just stick with 40,000, right? The $40,000 per year. If I do that to 5 million vehicles, 2 million in the US, 1 million in Europe, 2 million in Asia, mostly in China, that kind of stuff. 5 million vehicles, $40,000 per year per vehicle, because you keep charging it because we're providing value to you, then we're looking at $200 billion per year, all virtual net income. If you had a 30 multiple on that, even a 40 multiple on that, then you're looking at a 200 billion times 36 trillion, $6 trillion company. But then if you do the 20 million vehicles, then you're looking at $800 billion per year, right? So then you're looking at $24 trillion of value. the the speed with which you can do that, like it takes time to make the new electric semis, and Tesla want to roll those out and do that. But they could say, let me have the cameras and the computer chip and stuff like that retrofit existing gas diesel trucks, because the trucks are out there. It would take 10, 15 years to replace them all, even with fast production, right? So all they have to do is make 20 million kits and retrofit the vehicles, bring them in for a 10,000 thing. That process might be doable in 3 years, 5 years, right? You can get a substantial amount away by just making kits of cameras and sensors, adapting them to the different kinds of semi trucks. So then that would mean you could complete the process by around 2030, right? So then all this robo trucking stuff could happen, and it would be an economic choice,
right,
from the trucking owners to convert to eliminate the driver, right? So it's not like, oh, do I feel comfortable driving, in a robo taxi, getting a ride? Do I want to shift from Uber? Then it's a pure price thing. This is a cleaner, stronger economic signal of, I can save $100,000 per year. I can start making triple my revenue by running my truck 3 times more, right? It's a huge, I can be a lot more profitable doing it, right? And also, to your point you made about that I discussed before about reducing the price of transportation, is that if I eliminate the driver and reduce costs, because the driver cost is half or more of all the trucking aspect, I could drop the cost by half. If I have faster operation and other things, the economics can improve by 3 times. So currently, delivery costs are about 10% of all products, groceries, everything from Amazon. If you're not getting Prime, you end up paying about 10% for that delivery, right? That package.
You're paying it one way or the other.
Right, you're paying one way or the other. Right. So then if I drop that down by 3 times, 1/3 of that cost, then I can drop the delivery charge, from 10% down to 3%, right? And so that, reduces inflation and costs. You don't have to pass it along, right? And also, because supply chain, one guy's paying 10%, another guy's paying 10%, it kind of adds up even more, because I'm taking parts to assemble things, right? And if I eliminate the 7% each step, that's a huge deal. I was talking about eliminating the entire 10% if you go full electric, because if you can eliminate your fuel costs, can be 1/4, 1/5 by going full electric versus diesel. That would be a further reason. So Tesla Semi still makes a lot of sense. You just have to scale up, and it takes a bit more time, but you still wouldn't want to make that shift.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other thing would be, as this gets perfected, you can increase the speed of the trucks, because if you no longer have the human limitation, right, you could go up to German Autobahn speeds, 120 miles per hour, 150 across, certain highways and that kind of stuff. You would adjust the system to do that, where having the high-speed Autobahns where you want them by just legislation, just like you have turnpikes on the East Coast. You say, I have certain highways for higher speed operation that, okay, they're straight enough, they're good enough, I can do higher speed operation. I can change the speed limit on these things. And then if you do that with nonstop driving at 100 miles per hour, I can take a delivery from Florida to LA in day and a half versus 5-day or longer delivery.
Sure.
So this would be a huge impact. But for Tesla, it's not unreasonable that they could do this fast rollout. So then the question of like complex models of like getting a bunch of taxis out there, I'm just saying, if I can replace the driver, and the driving is mostly highway anyway for that, it's an easier problem. And then they can say, I have to go a certain route, because they're not like going complex delivery routes for most of them, right? So this impact, I think, is a easier problem, faster, economics are more clear on it. So that I think could be this the bigger than the initial impact. Although the impacts for just pre-robotaxi FSD are substantial
Right.
in that, we go back to the sorry, um, go back to the licensing aspect, AI company, the margin impacts of it, having substantial numbers of adoption going from like 15, 20% in the United States, 5% total, up to 20% adoption, even, getting up to 50% adoption could be possible in the right scenarios. So that would be um, changing the margin in the net income by, 5%, 10% on the margin side, and then, billions of dollars or more on the net income side, which would start impacting this year. But um, the perception changes, getting Tesla thinking more like it's a growth company again with these things would be the shift in the perception of the stock and the share price.
Right.
Um, Last thing on that would be that um, if there's a series of licensing deals, I think that would be the cleanest signal to the analysts that um, if other companies, Ford, GM, Toyota, Honda, start saying, I'm treating Tesla like a technology AI company because I'm buying their AI, just like the change on the charging network thing,
Right.
where something they all shifted over. That would be it's not up to the analysts to decide, okay, I think they'll make a bit more on net income. It's like other companies have recognized that. So that would be, I think, the main movement of the stock would be the AI and the licensing deals, if they happen this year, yeah, or next year.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's basically what we had to cover, unless you had anything else.
Yeah, let me think here. Uh, I think the one thing that you had indicated that you wanted to talk about, um, Mike, you can just cut out that back and forth there. I think one last thing, Brian, would be in terms of how this impacts the bots, the Optimus bots. So this technology, this AI tech that's
Mhm.
going into FSD is extremely sophisticated. A lot of people don't think about the fact that this is way more sophisticated than ChatGPT,
Mhm.
way more sophisticated than large language models,
Mhm.
because the FSD, the car in this case, has to understand the real world in a real world sense. ChatGPT is just going out and looking for the next possible word that goes into that sentence.
Mhm.
Or in the visuals, it's going out and looking at how can I find some additional imagery that completes what it is that I'm trying to do here and makes it look normal. But when you're talking about real world, you're talking about having to see the road, the curbs, the signage, the trains, the people, the dogs. I mean, all, the every kind of thing that you can imagine in the real world that could impact the car in any given way. It has to see it as a real world, and it has to also interpret signals from humans that might be giving directions or saying, okay, you can go, or something like that. All of that is extremely real world oriented compared to what ChatGPT is doing. The same thing is true on the other side of the equation. ChatGPT only has to find that next word and then put it up on a screen. Once the FSD understands the real world, now it has to put together a plan, and then after it has the plan, it has to execute on the plan by making some kind of a decision with regard to blinkers, with regard to lights on or off, with regard to pushing the accelerator, with regard to changing the steering wheel, hitting the brake, all kinds of things. And the thing I worry about is that it'll change the tunes because it won't like what I want to listen to. But anyway, that's for another show. But it is making all those decisions in fractions of a second.
Yeah.
So where ChatGPT and DALL-E and all the rest of these sometimes are sitting there waiting for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, even 30 seconds before it can give you an image, before it can complete report that you're asking it to create, the Tesla FSD is doing this in a tenth of a second, sometimes less than a tenth of a second. It has to see it, plan it, make a decision what to do about it, execute the decision because it's going 70 miles an hour. It has to do all of that. And then it has to keep doing that repeatedly about all of this input. So this is on a completely different level.
Mhm.
And people are not giving Tesla enough credit for how much more sophisticated it is. Now you transfer that to the bot. The bot has a very sophisticated amount of worldview it also has to see, but not nearly as much as the car has to see.
Mhm.
It may have to know more. It may have to know more environments, but it doesn't have to know as much at any given time. And
Mhm.
it gets to react slower to the environment than the car does by a lot. There is not as many safety considerations, but it does have probably more different outputs in
Mhm.
terms of how it's levering various different components within the robot in order to get it to move or to make a decision to pull an arrow back, to pull a bow back, whatever, all the kinds of things that it might be able to do. So it's a little more sophisticated on that side. But overall, it's really not any more sophisticated than the current FSD. So that would give expectations, I think, to good investors out there on the street that the bots are going to be extremely good very, very soon.
Right. So I think the behavioral aspects of it, of the Tesla bot, the fact that I'm going to cook different kinds of meals, different kinds of food, that can be more intricate and complicated in terms of like more things happening. But in terms of, what perfectly translates is moving around the world, moving around with people, in the world, because, the cars are moving around with people. So, you know, then it goes to the difference, as you described, is how do I handle my hands for these particular tasks? But then if I can learn from video, like the cars do, and they master that system for feeding in video learning, then the progress should be very rapid to uh, master a huge set of capabilities. To they're really showing it, grasping the object, setting down the object, taking those sub capabilities or basic letters of what I'm doing, and then combining that into a word or paragraph of actions,
Right.
like reach out, grab a, release, grasp, and then having all that into this longer um, choreography of dance motion. So yeah, it looks like that should be accelerating very quickly, which we will see, as um, because they're supposedly getting into the factories and doing stuff. And so then we'll see the progress on that, very quickly.
Yeah, and Elon has even called FSD a baby AGI.
Mm.
And he has never described exactly what he means by baby AGI, but what I like to think of it as actually an infant AGI, meaning maybe a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old in terms of its skill sets, its ability to react, the knowledge that it has of the world around it, and the speed with it reacts, with which it reacts, and the coordination, those kinds of things. So we see these robots right now, they're fairly slow. They're acting a little bit like a 4-year-old might in terms of the way they do activities, and they would only have a limited number of things. A 4-year-old can't even cook on a real oven yet. It can only cook on a play oven. So it's at some kind of infantile level in terms of being able to do the vast majority of things that humans do. And it's going to develop quickly as it gets more and more uh, intelligence, if you will.
And the other aspect would be that Tesla has the 100 exaflops of compute or more, and also 1,000 petabytes of cache memory, the really fast memory for this thing. So they have the infrastructure on the hardware level, and also the chips they have in every vehicle, and they also have the software, enterprise software, to bring in all those thousands of petabytes of data for the video, figure out how to learn from it, and then get out actions. So they've already done this full scale learning system
Right.
for the FSD, and they are applying that infrastructure of capability. It's like Microsoft made Excel, Word, and Excel, and then they make PowerPoint, the other parts of the Office suite on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same kind of thing. It's like I've made a software at scale, an AI at scale, and now I'm going to make another one. So that's why you can have more confidence in it because, after um, Microsoft made Word, making the next applications were just more of the same.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think to me, it's just fascinating to see, to recognize that this future is really here. It's really actually here. It's not even future anymore. It's really now just a matter of iteration and execution. And the ball the ball is really in Tesla's court. It's their contest to win. It looks like they're going to win it. And the winner is going to take most, and by a long shot in this particular case.
And people won't have to just trust us. It will be happening month by month. We'll see the data. We'll see what's happening. So tracking things closely, they can come back and we can help them to keep up to date with it because there's so much is happening. It takes a lot of time to stay up to date.
Great, Brian. Hey, it's been fun.
Okay, thank you.